Thanks, Sally. Well, Sally kind of did a great job with what Hawthorne Books is doing, so I'm not sure I have a whole lot to add to that other than thank you to all of you for coming out. It is nice out there, and I agree, it's nice to support local businesses, and Broadway Books is one of my favorite bookstores, and so it's really cool to see you guys all here. Thanks for coming. Maybe instead of telling you about Hawthorne, because Sally did a good job of that, except for to say that next year is our 10th year anniversary.
Wow. All right.
And every year when we look at our forecast, we're never sure, honestly, like, are we going to do another year? But we have 10-year anniversary coming up next year, so we'll have a big party, and hopefully we'll see you guys all there. What I'd like to talk about maybe is I got the privilege of editing this book, Loretta's book, and that more than anything else in the world makes me really happy. If I could do nothing but edit books, that's what I would do. I wouldn't worry about having to sell them or publicize them or raise money for them. I would just work with authors and edit them. And when this came in manuscript form from Loretta's agent, I read this and I thought, man, this is a good novel. For a debut novel, this is really a wonderful book. And the story of Janie Merrick and Paul Jesse just grabbed me immediately. And for any of you who read manuscripts or submissions, you know that for a submission to grab you is unusual. I mean, to want to read and to take it home, and it, you know, it weighs a lot, and take it home, and I read in the bathtub, I read at night when I went to bed, and I went in the next morning and I told Kate Sage, my business partner, I want to do this book. This is going to be my next project. And yeah, I mean, seriously, it just really grabbed me, it really spoke to me, and the characters of Janie and Paul are very complex, and I think Loretta did a really good job with Paul Jesse in particular, not making him a one-dimensional villain, and you gave him a lot of complexity, and it was a good psychological profile of somebody, and you can kind of go with him down this path that he went and how he unfortunately disintegrated. And then also, I don't want to give too much away about the book, because I want you all to read it, but I love what happens at the end with Janie and what propels her out, or one of the things that propelled her out of the situation, other than community, was the promise of education and a job in a bookstore. So, without further ado, let me introduce Loretta. One of the cool things about Loretta, I don't know if you guys know this, but she is in the first graduating class of the MFA program at PSU. And I mean, that's pretty cool to have an MFA program at PSU, and it's got great teachers, and Loretta is their first published author.
Paul and Jesse. It's in the chapter called Court and Spark. Paul pushed a shopping cart up and down the aisles of the Goodwill. Raindrops keep falling on my head, played on the sound system. He felt sleepy from the music, the buzzing of the overhead lights, and the joint he'd smoked in the car on the way over. He wanted to buy Janie a present. She'd been a little blue the last week. Paul pushed the cart with one hand and with the other shot by touch, his fingers grazing a row of lady sweaters. He closed his eyes. When he felt the softest sweater on the rack, he opened his eyes and an ugly green and purple cardigan appeared. Next to it was a fluffy mohair pullover the color of orange sherbet. It looked like the sweaters girls used to wear to basement dances on Saturday nights a life ago. They didn't call it dancing, they called it fishing. Bumping and grinding against a girl in a hot, dark basement to songs by Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell, Al Green and Aretha Franklin. The girl could be any girl, but the taste of juicy fruit gum and stolen liquor remained the same. He examined the sweater in his hands for stains, tears, and other flaws before putting it into the cart with his finds, an old Bob Dylan album, a pair of black high-heel shoes with ankle straps that he hoped would fit her, and a little glass fish to catch the light in her bedroom window. She was a Pisces. He hadn't remembered any of these little things about a woman in a long time. Do you know the way to San Jose? Blasted over the buzzing lights as Paul headed to the cashier. Janie rinsed a soapy rag in a bucket as she scrubbed the kitchen floor on her hands and knees. She wore a flowered kerchief she'd made from a scrap of fabric. It looked like the one she'd remembered her mom wore when she cleaned house. Triangles of bright cotton stitched with seam binding, or rickrack around the edges to hold back her hair. Her mom's hair had never been as long as Janie, but it was the same color and texture, brownish red and wavy. After her mother died, her dad told her never to cut it, and Janie hadn't. When Paul combed out her hair, it reminded Janie of all the times her dad had done the same. It made her feel as if she and Paul were already a kind of family. Janie slapped the soapy rag on the floor and scrubbed hard. She heard China outside barking and the rumble of gravel under the wheels of Paul's car. A minute later, the back door opened. A cold October breeze flooded the kitchen. Paul stood in the doorway holding a grocery bag. "Can Janie come out to play? Don't let China in and don't track up my clean floor." "What kind of hello is that? I ought to take all my presents and go on back home." Janie stood up and reached for the bag. "I want to see the presents." "I came to invite you for Chinese. Maybe I'll take the dog instead," China barked from the open door. Janie slipped her arms around Paul's neck and squeezed. "I love presents. I love Chinese food. When are we going?" "It's a surprise. Here, go on, get ready." He handed her the bag. Janie pulled out a dancer's black leotard, a wrap skirt, black tights, high heel shoes, and an orange mohair sweater. Girl clothes. Paul blushed and fumbled with the door. "Hurry up and get change, and bring your equipment. We won't be back tonight." Janie showered quickly. She'd never been on a date before, but this felt close to what she thought it would be like. She put on mascara and almond-flavored lip balm and dressed in the clothes Paul had given her. They fit perfectly. She threw a few things into her denim bag and grabbed a jacket from her room, writing a short note on the pad by the phone. "Gone for Chinese with Paul. Say hi to Cookie. Love, Jay." When she walked into the living room, Paul whistled. He touched her face with cold, chapped hands and gave her a kiss. She loved his hands. They were beat up and permanently stained with grease around the cuticles from working on his bike. Sometimes while they watched a movie, he'd bite his nails. With a finger in his mouth, he looked like who he'd been when he was somebody's child. He pulled a small black box from his pocket. "Almost forgot to give you this." She took the box and opened it. Inside was a silver ring with a turquoise stone in the center. She put the ring on her finger and kissed him again. "I feel like it's my birthday." "That's a few months down the road. You ready?" "Yeah, where are we going?" "On our first real date, Jane." When my agent had the book, it went to a big publishing house, and they wanted me to rewrite the ending. They wanted Paul Jesse to die. Yeah, they wanted Janie to kill Paul Jesse, and then I was like, "I'm sorry." Yeah, and Tom Cruise would play. No, Brad Pitt would play. And that just, I knew, that's not, I don't want them to make my book, and I'm not going to change that part of it. But when, you get good feedback about, I think Rhonda and I worked on, developing Janie's character more, and we had talks about that before I even, signed a contract with Rhonda. We sat down and talked about the things, the changes that she felt were necessary, and so I had that going in, knowing that here's a woman who loves my book and just wants to make it better, and wants me to be able to tell the story so that other people get it. And that's like such a gift. So I'd say work with your editor and put that out there and try and be like positive about it. I think some writers get too, they think their words are too perfect. Nothing's perfect.